So I will call us to order. We are today meeting on August 8th, 2018. The Special Government Affairs Committee meeting is called to order. We do not have a full quorum. We have Eric Previn and
Victoria Shulam
present and accounted for. We just said hello to some people who are here also for a land use meeting about aroma. So we directed them to the right place. So we'll move forward without a quorum, and we'll make any recommendations clear that they're the recommendations of the chair or the recommendations of the two of us, as opposed to a quorum if we do have any. So, approval of the July Government Affairs Committee minutes. So what I did, because I've never done the minutes before, was I did what Rita said, which was I took last month's agenda and I wrote in what we did. I wrote who was here on the front page underneath roll call. And then you can see I wrote all caps. I think you're maybe one page, go a little faster. Yep, there it is. And then I wrote this, which is sort of like after a brief discussion, the committee voted unanimously to send a CIS to the city and the Studio City Neighborhood Council, urging to oppose the new cannabis city tax.
Yes.
And by the way,
yes,
we're happy to report that was a big victory.
Yes.
Because as you know, they decided not to vote for that tax. So the minutes contain the information like that. Can we say that the minutes are approved?
Yes.
Yes.
I read them good. And they
my plan is
everything we talked about.
Excellent. And my plan is to leave them in a file, in a folder that will say GAC July meeting, So we'll start a file for every meeting, and that way, if anybody has any questions, they can. I also, by the way, point out that there are audio links to the last meeting, because we made a recording.
Excellent.
So that was good as well. Okay. Now back to the agenda. And also, I will say that we sent another CIS. We sent two CISs last month. One on the billboards, as you recall, that was heard on August 6th, which was a couple days ago. I didn't get the upshot yet, but we definitely got it through. We sent it to every member of the Assembly and every member of the Senate, and a few other people as well, including our City Council.
That's the California Senate.
Yes, the California Senate and the California State Assembly. Okay, and then we also had, and this points to the next item on our agenda, which is, because there's no public comments, community impact statements. So we can go to item 6, which is community impact statements. And I can clarify that we tried very hard to send one into the city portal, because we had not been fully apprised of the secret code. There was a delay at getting the secret code. Now, obviously, I blew my stack briefly and said, well, just do it. And who has the secret code? Patrick, Rita, someone. And the result was not great. The result was talk to done. The city clerk was very helpful. I will say that. The city clerk took me right up to the window and said, okay, give me the code. And I was like, well, I don't have the code. They said, maybe Dunn can help. And that's when things just could not. And I was very polite. It was and anyway, long story short is we subverted that by writing a public comment, which they had to accept, explaining that we had done so and that it would be better if they could make it that the authorization for CIS goes with the president. Because if you change president to new president, as we did, if you don't tell him, he doesn't know. And if you don't give him the authority, his hands are tied behind his back. So, the good news is, and it is good news, we are on this agenda today going to propose some people to have CIS authority. And I think we should just make it real simple. The president should have the authority. The secretary.
We're paying a secretary.
Well okay, the secretary spot, perhaps it will be someone else who takes it, but that's in my mind. And then the GAC person, which is me, Eric Previn, and probably the public safety radar. And then I think the fifth one can be somebody's proposal. There's lots of people. My preference is to have one code that we all have access to, like the door code, which we can't remember, you and I, funny, but you know what I'm saying. Because that's how it should be. It's not a secretive thing, and someone's not going to go rogue with the CIS. It's just not the way it works. So that's what I would recommend. There is a CIS form that I didn't print out along with everything else that I did. Did you print one out by any chance? If you did,
you have 2 printed.
Oh my God, you're a genius. Let's see.
Compulsive Virgo.
Oh, excellent. So this is what we need to complete, which we will do, but not during the meeting. But I will do that with your help. Okay, so I think we're good. We don't. We will make a motion to tell the. I make a motion that the president put 5 CIS names on the agenda for the next board meeting to authorize use of the CIS system. Period. And I will type that up more or less as that. So we just make a note of it. Excellent. Okay, now we can move on to item number 7. So item number 7 is the Board of Supervisors at the county are taking a look at streamlining all the nasty, noxious smoking things into one ordinance. They would like to add vaping to the smoking rules. So in other words, right now you can't smoke near the front door of a building. You know, at the city hall you have to be 50 feet off, as an example. So now they want to make it that all those laws that apply to smoking, not in a restaurant, not in a building, not in a this, apply to vaping as well. Now, I can tell you that, I'll give you a preview, that there's a robust community of people who will explain that it's not the same, it doesn't leave an odor, and it's not smoke, so you can't really treat it the same. They're not saying that you can't have some rules, but it's really silly to say that it's disrupting the environment. So I think that that's a good point, frankly, even though I am not a fan of the toxic burning of the lungs of children whilst, sticking nicotine in their minds. But I don't know. What do you think? Have you had a chance to, review any of this material? I mean, or you could just tell me your views on vaping. Should it be the same?
I have mixed feelings about that. I know some vapors, and I'm less concerned about the vape in the air, the vape emissions in the air, than I am about the addictive part of it.
That's a really good point, Victoria. I agree with you. My concerns are robust about this activity, but they are not about the air exposure. And I'm a little concerned because the laws aimed at smoking are all about that. And it's very different. And marijuana, which is not vaping, should be treated the same as smoke. Because when you smoke a joint, if I may...
You are producing smoke.
Yeah, and I think that it's like against burning stuff in restaurants, I am for. Now, if somebody wants to get a license to have a smoking lounge like in Amsterdam or something, I mean, maybe they can do that. This is California. Good luck with that, would be what I would say. Make it outdoors. I don't know. Shouldn't people be allowed to smoke on the beach? No.
I do not want to walk through smoke.
Okay.
I don't want to walk through cigarette smoke, cannabis smoke.
Okay.
Vape doesn't seem to bother me. One of my friends is a vapor. I don't... driving back from Oregon, the smoke from the car fire nearly killed me. And I wasn't near it. I went through the mountains and got it. Smoke is not good for people. The vaping doesn't bother me. But
okay.
Well, I would prefer that cigarette smoke and marijuana smoke were not in the public air.
I agree with you. And I think there's nothing to do right now. We don't need to make a motion, but there will be a report back to the Board of Supervisors with what they decide. And I think we should look at it then and see if we agree or disagree. So let's move on. No motion on that one. Now, item number 8 is, moving on to item number 8, is Studio City meeting and event locations. And I think it's fair to say that meeting on the lot has some frustrations for people, especially people who don't have parking clearance, like Barry, I think, does, and I do, because I'm on the board. But for those who don't, hiking in from the parking structure is frustrating. I know it because people have told me directly.
You're preaching to the choir.
Right. So this is a small list of different ideas. And do you have any other ideas, or do any of them? To me, I was at the library today posting an agenda for Mr. Schwellenberg, who's got a homeless meeting. There you go.
I was there today.
Nice. Maybe we could have been ships passing in the middle of the hottest part of the day. But in any case, that's a nice venue.
I like the library a lot.
Yeah,
it's
and that's
easy to get to.
Sweet
Everybody
big empty
knows
room.
where it is.
It's enough people. It's easy to get to.
If it's not a huge meeting, there's plenty of parking.
Yeah, and even if not, you can park around the corner. You can park at Beeman. It's not. You can park.
Yeah.
You can park on. So I think that's a great solution. an idea. We could, we don't have to necessarily make a motion. We can report that's what we think is a good. What else do you like? I like
that.
beaming outside at the picnic tables as well. I've had
I
many
like the
success.
idea of beaming on a nice day and depending on the issue.
Absolutely.
And I like the idea of carpenter school because of the parking.
Yep.
If we can.
I don't like the
manage
idea
that.
of. I like the idea of carpenter too. I'm surprised that there's such a robust fee. Something like
There's a fee?
Yeah, it was
it's
it's
city.
fallen apart for the moment, but it was $300, which was excessive. But
Okay,
now it's
a couple of years ago,
Yeah.
I was at a meeting, it was an NC meeting, I believe, and it was over just off Backman at the park there. It's a school.
Mm-hmm.
Is that Rio Vista? No, Rio Vista's down off Vineland.
Well, no, I thought Rio Vista's off Colfax or something, isn't that? Or no?
Colfax, Vineland?
No, maybe
No,
it's in Vineland.
Vineland.
Oh, it is Vineland, yeah.
There was a meeting there that was fine. The one at the school off of Vineland,
Yeah.
approximately where the fire station is, but over.
Right.
That's a
I
great
think-
place with good parking.
Yep.
I'm sure that if we wanted, we could do it at Walter Reed.
Yeah. How about Beeman Park?
They don't. Do they have a meeting room?
Yeah,
That we could,
they
oh
do.
yeah, I've been to meetings there.
Yeah.
Beeman Park would be excellent.
Yeah.
Except.
And then you mentioned Walter Reed. Walter Reed is a big campus. It's possible. It's a little hard to imagine they're going to open that one, for us. But maybe it's a good idea.
Call
yeah.
Mr. Geringer.
Oh, do you know the principal?
Is he the principal?
I don't
now?
know. Oh, is he just
I
a
don't
teacher?
know.
Okay. Well, let's stay on agenda. So I think we've got lots of interesting ideas, but anything, because the key stressor is people do not feel comfortable hiking in from the structure so much, and it's a kind of an impediment. So let's move forward. I don't know if we need a motion. We can decide. Since it's just the two of us, let's just roll it over.
Let's roll it over,
Yeah.
maybe for discussion.
We can bring it up at the
board
meeting. Yeah, exactly. We'll bring it up. I don't think it needs to be on the agenda. Okay, so noise in Studio City. And this obviously refers to a couple different things. The air traffic that Radau brought up, having seen something on Nextdoor, and then a constituent brought up that a chainsaw was working into the evening. So there's some good information that we can we can publish. And I will do so, which is Barry provided the links for the actual hours, which are quite, open but specific. You can do it later than this woman was hoping. This woman was concerned because at 7:15 someone was using a saw, but that's allowed. So that's that. Now, as for the airport, I'm happy to report we are not the first people who've asked about this. And I called the Burbank Glendale Airport and spoke to a kind of a higher up there named something Sheehy, Ms. Sheehy, and she was very nice and very smart. And I asked her about what was going on, and her name was Sarah Paulson Sheehy, and she said that during the last 9 months, the Special Operations Commission of the Burbank, Glendale, Pasadena Airport Authority had asked staff, directed them to hire an independent consultant, and they did. And the independent consultant's name is Landrum, Landrum, and Brown, and we can report this to the board. And they were introduced to the community a little later in March of 2018, and they were basically looking at the questions that we raised. Are planes lower than they used to be? Is there more noise? And they actually had been in touch with some residents in Studio City, during peak fly times, and they conducted interviews and all that. So I was very
Do they have a
surprised and
report?
interested. I said, "Can we see the report?" And they said, "It's going to be in a few weeks. It's going to be out. In 6 weeks, it will be out. But in the next week, we'll know the exact date, and we're going to have a meeting. And you should absolutely come to the meeting." And so that was that. And they also have a website, which we can post on the agenda so people know where to go and look for more. And I just will say this, because in my conversation with her, I said, "So how has it been going? Is there more? What's going on? Let's talk off the record." Although we were on the record. And she said, "It's going great. Last year we had 4.7 million passengers." And I immediately said, "Oh, that's great. How many did you have the year before?" She said, 4.3. I said, 400,000 new passengers? Wow. She said, "Yeah, some of it's due to the bigger aircraft." And I said, "Right." But I was thinking, what's 400,000 people around that area? And she said, nobody wants to go to LAX. And we both laughed. And it's not that funny because I'm worried that it's going to become a big airport. But it's not. And I think it's a great airport.
It's landlocked.
Yep. And just for the record, Don Brown in Burbank, Ray Adams, and Bill Wiggins are the three characters who've been appointed by the Burbank City Council to look out for Burbank.
Bill Wiggins?
Yeah, Bill Wiggins, Ray Adams, and Don Brown. Those are the three commissioners who represent Burbank. And she wrote to me, she said, thanks for your inquiry. We'd like to extend an invitation to our Special Operations Committee hearing regarding this issue, which I think you'll find helpful. As soon as we've confirmed a date, time, and location, I will pass along the information. Hope you have a nice weekend. So That's that. And she's the Senior Director of Government and Public Affairs. We're moving on to the next item.
Well, no.
Yeah. Oh, let's hear from Victoria.
I had
Yes.
contacted them in the 80s because I would regularly run screaming out of my house thinking a plane was going to crash in my neighborhood. And it was that the flight path at that time of the year went toward the mountains, made a right turn, went over our house, and if there was a cloud cover, the noise is horrendous. So I went to a meeting at the airport, and they asked me why, if I flew with my husband, why I was concerned. I said, well, if you're a flyer, you automatically listen for rough. So I'm listening. So they talked about a lot of things, and they were responsive to the community because it was a big brouhaha. And they did bring down the noise levels considerably. And where they could, they worked on altering flight paths. So that was productive.
Historically, the reason why it gets worse sometimes is they don't ascend at a high rate because it costs more gas to gun it, to get up and out and quiet. Again, we're not the FAA, but that's a good report because we got some information and we can share that. And that's what we like to do, is share information. So no motion necessary, we'll bring it up. Now, we're on to number 10. We're making great progress.
Wow.
So it's hard for stakeholders to weigh in confidently on our parking situation in Studio C without all the good information. So we asked the Department of Transportation, for some records about that. And Barry and I have been having a conversation about it because Barry said, that he thinks that he can get the valet operators. You're just about asking the right person. You need to rub the right genie bottle. And great. So I said to him on Monday, take the time you need and just, if we can get that and the other things that we were looking for, because on the agenda, I think, what were the things? A map of the metered spaces and copies of some of the advertisements that were done, and an official list of all the valet operators on the big boulevard. So that's not like the hardest thing in the world to provide.
No.
But they haven't provided it, so I'm going to write a letter to Sleater Reynolds asking for it, unless there's an objection.
I'm still very concerned about what I heard from Mendocino Farms when they were before land use. And the man said that the problem with the parking in the Trader Joe lot is restaurant parking. It's because there's so little parking for restaurant goers that they park at Trader Joe.
Oh my God.
Well, that's an indication. I find it hard to believe that valet parking is using only spaces that should be valet parking. I think they're parking cars everywhere.
I agree. I don't, but I really would like to know who the players are, because without that information, we have nothing. So that's it. That's all written into the item, and that's what we can do. Unless there's some opposition, it's just writing a letter and putting a little pressure on them,
That's fine.
which I think is appropriate. Okay, and let's go down Barry's list to see if we've left out any of his input. He said, regarding the county smoke-free, that he supported a motion, but we don't have enough to do a motion because we're going to wait for the Board of Supervisors.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't feel that GAC should be involved in deciding where board meetings are located. Well, we disagree. We're going to at least say that we discussed it. We don't have to do a motion. No motion required. We agree with that.
Board meetings, that's different.
No, because I think board meetings is what we're talking about.
Well, it has to be a big space,
Yeah.
because we could theoretically have 200 people at a meeting.
Well, we know we're going to have 200
It
people.
has to be big, and there has to be ample parking for all those people.
That's a good point.
So that limits locations.
But this is not a great location for that because then so many people have to make their hike.
This only works if we can arrange to have golf cart shuttles.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, and then just recapping, he also said that the Burbank Airport, well, we have information, and yeah, and then he made a comment on 10A and B that he thought he could get the information. I gave him till Wednesday, but he couldn't do it in time. And then 10C is a transportation committee noticed and had a public hearing for all the preferential parking districts. Okay, but that's not what the public records that we requested were, so that's an interesting point. Okay, and then we're moving on. He said 11, regarding beer and wine, that is being heard in the planning yesterday, so we didn't get what happened, and it's being heard across the street tonight, so we're moving on. Mm-hmm. And 12, can we get, he thinks he can also get a list of cannabis-related shops in Studio City without having to do a motion or count them up. I was going to seek a volunteer. I would be willing to do some of the effort to go and just kind of make a note of the ones that I can see so we can have a nice list like we do of the drinking ones, of the alcohol licenses. But he says he can get it, so maybe we should let him try. What do you think?
Oh, he can probably get it. He's been around a long time.
Yeah.
He
But
knows,
the problem
he
is
knows
that
everybody.
yeah, but you're getting the list from the city is only who's on the city's list. We want a list that's on our street. Like if there's 3 places that aren't on the city's list, I want to know. So that's why I know what it looks like from the corner of Vineland to the corner of Coldwater, and I will drive in my car and, perk up and then make a note.
I would like to see if the city has the same list as we see with our oddballs.
That's a great point. So why don't we generate our own list and also ask Barry to provide the city's list, and let's see if they match. Good idea. Okay, so that will be the motion on item number 12. Okay, and then for item number 13, this is an interesting one. This was on the Transportation Committee's meeting today at downtown City Hall. And this is about parking spaces where you charge your vehicle if you're electric. And you have some on public roadways, like I can't think of one because I don't have an electric vehicle at the moment. Or I have a Prius, but it's not a plug-in. So the point is that the City Hall is working. I read it carefully. They want to make sure that they can cite people if they're in their space that's for electric vehicles, either for too long or, they're violating some law.
Or they're not an electric
Right.
vehicle.
And so, to me,
They want to be able to cite misuse of the space.
they want to be able to penalize them. And Barry was initially opposed to it, is my understanding. But then when he wrote here, I don't believe the city should be paying for anyone's fuel or energy for private, non-city owned vehicles. I guess he's assuming that the power you get at a charging station is free. I don't know about that.
I don't know either. I would
Be it
imagine
gasoline
city
or
users
electricity.
would have their own credit card for it.
Maybe. But as long as they do, this is him, have these electric charging parking spaces, a gasoline car ought to be towed out of a charging parking space.
I
So-
agree.
Well, I mean, I think that's true too, but that's the part that I'm not as fond of is why are we doing this now? And wouldn't it be better to do it when we have more of a sense of what we have? Because I'm not sure. I mean, okay. We can pass it along and suggest that. So, what would the motion be? The motion would be, because I think we have to resolve whether or not we're paying for their energy or not. Why don't we see? Do you know what I'm saying? Because I don't know. That's complicating it for me. The idea of, are we saying that it shouldn't be free? I mean, I think
How
that
does
if
it work at Costco? Don't you pay for it there
for
when you
gas
when you,
up,
when you charge up?
I don't know.
I don't know anything about them, but I'd be willing to look into that.
Well, should we do some research on this one, maybe?
At the bank meeting, there was a man there from Sherman Oaks who did a presentation about charging stations for the community and where they've decided to locate them near the freeway off-ramp, blah, 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 that kind of thing. It was very interesting. And we have that bank meeting on audio. And he is willing to come out and speak to neighborhood councils.
Oh, great. About where charging stations should go and how
about
that works.
What they've figured it out.
Well, great. Why don't we do that? Let's
Yeah.
invite that guy, the consultant. Well, do you know his name? Or you'll dig it up?
I will dig it up.
Okay.
And the city, I think the city is responsible for its own people using its stations. And I'm pretty sure that its own people would have their own credit card too. And that may be the only card that works in that machine.
Mm-hmm.
The city should be smart enough to figure that out. If I can figure it out, they should.
Right. So I would also just like to thank Barry for responding to a guy who was asking what to do about his balcony, where some outside leaves and trees were coming onto his balcony, and he thought that it might be a city tree, so who should he contact? And Barry said, first check with your landlord, which was a great idea, and then he'll be able to determine. And landlord can either do it or get the adjacent property to do it. If it is on another property, the landlord has a right to trim it if it's blocking his property. So in other words, you can probably take care of that. So he said stay in touch. So that was maybe...
I'm pretty sure we can trim anything on our side of the property.
Exactly. So this is the city ordinance, which I think we're going to say. I mean, I don't feel compelled to write a motion about it, but we can, since Barry's not here to sell it, maybe we can see what they do, report back on what happened today. I can research what happened today in the because it was at transportation today. If it passed, or if they sent it back for a little tweaking, because it may, and then maybe there will be time to send something if we can clarify our questions about when is it, because it is in the future, and this is just prearranging to be able to nail people with the towing and ticketing. And I'm not a guy who likes to do that as a first reaction, even though sometimes people at City Hall do like to square away that we can nail you with the citation. So let's hold off for now on that and get more information, because I think we all agree, you and I at least agree, that it's great to get electric vehicles, out on the road, because it helps with the air.
Well, it would be nice if the city could use those machines they bought for the police department.
Exactly. And so that, believe it or not, brings us to the end of our meeting. We can, if you want to make a little statement, that would be fine, and I certainly can make a concluding comment.
This was included in something
Let's see.
like that.
Yep. Oh, did you?
And I looked at that and I thought, oh, I'm confused.
Yeah. This is the this came from Dunn, and this is just our annual. I called Lorenzo Briseno. Or no, I didn't call him. I wrote to him, and he gave us the information about the CISs. So I think we're good.
Okay.
Anything to add, or we're good?
No, I think we're good.
Okay, so let's. We'll give the information to Patrick and conclude our meeting. This meeting is adjourned.